Sorry about that.
Hello, this is a free seat room, so if everybody wants to join closer to stage, please feel free to do so. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the conference, I welcome you all to the high-level event on the climate emergency. The need for climate action is more urgent than ever. Again, we see heat waves and extreme weather events breaking historic records all over the world. We see the consequences in the form of floodings, wildfire, landslides, the destruction of entire communities, and then hunger, poverty, illness, and deaths. In addition to year-on-year record-breaking climate events, we also have science that is more accurate and precise than ever. The 1.5-degree report, the report on oceans and cryosphere, and the climate change and land report are all reflecting the same science-based consensus. We are rapidly passing tipping point after tipping point, and we might never be able to turn back. And the consequences will be disastrous for life on planet Earth as we know it. This is not a speculation. This is facts. And over the past year, we have seen a wave of protests and demands from civil society to the leaders, to us here in the room, to react to the facts and take action. The voices of the youth have been particularly forceful in driving this social wave of engagement and concern forward. They are asking for true leadership in this time of global crisis. I think it is time that we listen and that we act. I am appointed to be the high-level climate champion for UNFCCC. What does it mean? It means that I have been asked by the parties to UNFCCC to catalyze action among non-party stakeholders, to build bridges between the political process in UNFCCC and climate actors that we now see engaging all countries and across all sectors. And in this time of crisis, I am happy to come with some good news. In the 2019 edition of the Yearbook of Global Climate Action, we find that if all current NDCs are fully implemented, and if all commitments by non-party stakeholders are delivered and do not displace emission reduction elsewhere, we would actually reach the 2-degree target. But let me say that this requirement that we all step up and do one, we have promised to do so, parties and non-party stakeholders all together. And frankly speaking, we are not seeing that happening right now. And it does not take us to the 1.5 degrees, which is what we really need. Every fraction of a degree of climate change has disastrous effect on our planet, on our society, and on us. This is why we're not sitting in a high-level event on climate change, but in an event on the climate emergency. Only the other day, more than 500,000 people walked in the climate protest here in Madrid. They were asking for us, the decision makers here in COP, to get down to action. They were asking for us to move from negotiation to implementation of the Paris Agreement. They asked us to lead. So let us do just that. Thank you very much. So now I would like to invite to take the lecture to Mr. Johan Rockström, Director of the Potsdam Institute of Climate Studies.
So dear delegates, this is a voice and update from science, and it goes very much in line to justify and support what Gonzalez just pointed out. Let me start by being very clear. The red thread in science over the last 20 years is that we have underestimated the pace of change, and we have underestimated the risks we're facing. 20 years ago, the IPCC estimated that catastrophic risks, like destabilizing the Greenland ice sheet, could only occur at 5 to 6 degrees Celsius warming. Today, science concludes that the risk of triggering large-scale discontinuities is reached already at 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, and IPCC now concludes in its most recent report that West Antarctica may already have passed a tipping point, committing all future generations to an additional 2-meter sea level rise. This, dear friends, is the new risk landscape. We're following a path that takes us to 3 to 4 degrees Celsius warming in only 80 years, when your children have grown up children. A place the planet has not been for the past 4 million years. In fact, the latest climate modeling shows that over the past 3 million years, the average temperature on Earth has never exceeded 2 degrees Celsius compared to the average pre-industrial temperature. 3 million years and never above 2. This provides ample scientific proof that your legally binding global decision in Paris 2015 is entirely aligned with science. Go beyond 1.5 and we enter a severe danger zone. This is our planetary boundary for a safe and just future for humanity on Earth. Exceed 2 degrees Celsius and we risk passing a planetary tipping point that pushes us along an unstoppable Earth trajectory towards a hothouse Earth, where Earth itself self-amplifies warming due to losses in nature's capacity to take up carbon, permafrost thawing, forest loss, evidence we're seeing in every day of scientific publications, pushing us well beyond what we have caused through our fossil fuel burning and land use change. The planet would be taking over. 2019 is not only another dark year in terms of global warming, the past 5 years being the warmest on record, and climate impacts, droughts, floods, fires, heat waves, hitting societies and communities across the world. The latest data is staggering. Between 1999 and 2018, about 495,000 people died from direct results of the more than now 12,000 recorded extreme weather events, accelerated and amplified by our anthropogenic global warming, causing losses over the same time period of over $3.5 trillion. No, 2019 is also unique in terms of the advancements of unequivocal scientific evidence. Gonzalo's made reference to this. We stand on unprecedented mountain of proof. Through the IPCC special reports on land, oceans, the IPBES global assessment, the WMO-led United in Science report, which was presented at Antonio Guterres' Climate Summit in September. And then we have the 10 new insights in climate science that we presented earlier this week to all the delegates here in Madrid with the must-knows in science over the past year. 2 weeks ago, we even showed in the prestigious scientific journal Nature that 9 out of the 15 known tipping elements that regulates the state of the planet are on the move, and that they are interconnected and can trigger uncontrolled domino effects. Accelerated Arctic warming, we saw the latest report just yesterday, and Greenland melting drives influx of fresh water into the North Atlantic. This may have contributed to a 15% slowdown of the circulation of heat in the North Atlantic. This slowdown can destabilize the West African monsoon, triggering droughts in Africa's Sahel region, affecting millions of people. But it can also dry out the Amazon. It can also disrupt the East Asian monsoon and cause a heat build-up in the Southern Ocean, which can explain the acceleration of the ice melt in Antarctica. We live in an interconnected system on the move. There's no feasible IPCC scenario, as you all know, that can take us to 1.5 degrees Celsius warming without bending the global curve of emissions 2020. The Global Carbon Project 2019, released earlier in this week here in Madrid, shows that global emissions continue growing. The remaining budget of allowable CO2 emissions for a chance to limit warming to 1.5 is now down to 340 billion tons of carbon dioxide. You know, this corresponds to 8 years of continued emissions at current pace. We enter the decisive decade. Current assessments show that just the existing and almost 600 gigawatts of new coal-fired plants planned or under construction in the world will on their own consume essentially the entirety of this budget. So coal alone can push us beyond the Paris limit. But even phasing out fossil fuels will not be enough. Oh no, IPCC scenarios are very clear. To take us well below 2, we need to also safeguard and keep all the natural ecosystems intact. We need to have very good carbon sequestration. If nature fails, we fail as well. The mounting evidence that we are facing catastrophic risks and that we're running out of time provides scientific justification for declaring a state of planetary emergency. This has been discussed among 8 heads of state at the UN Climate Summit, including Frans Timmermans, the now executive vice chair of the European Commission. We will push this scientifically towards the UN General Assembly in 2020. What's the purpose? To create panic? Of course not. It is to unleash transformation and an emergence plan towards a safe and just climate future. We have this plan. The scientific community has presented an exponential roadmap showing that we can bend the global curve of emissions 2020 and cut emissions by half by 2030 with existing technologies and the current economy. We can, and the window is open, but barely. It's time to act. Thank you very much.
Please, Johan. Thank you very much, Johan. And now it's my honor to introduce and give the lecture to Her Excellency Teresa Rivera, Minister of the Ecological Transformation of Spain.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy and honored to join you in this discussion. I think that this is a fantastic panel where we hear the voice of science loud and clear, where we hear the voice of the society, of concerned people being represented both by NGOs, activists that have worked for decades, trying to push this agenda forward, and the voice of youth, people that come up and say, hey, this is enough. And I think that this is a very, very important message. It is a very important message at the time that the COP opens a new cycle, a cycle of implementation, action, ambition. These are the 3 words that we hear the most. A COP that, in order to be credible, needs to show to what extent we are guided by what it has already been agreed, the most popular word this year, which is climate emergency. We are in front of an emergency, and we should be guided by that, acting as far, as deep, as fast as we are able to do. Because as Johan was saying, what we have done is to underestimate on the science side what the impacts could be, and we underestimated what on the social side could be the social concern and the social impacts, the unfairness, the vulnerability of the lack of action. So it's quite reassuring to have this with us, because sometimes what we have felt along the years is that the voices that were heard the most were those asking for more time, not to be too fast, to delay action because of whatever organizational needs in order to avoid fearing the transformation that we needed to put in place. We all need to act, but the capacity we've got is very, very, very different. And we, holding responsibilities in public institutions, should be the ones to make it possible here in science, paying attention to people, paying attention what it should be considered the public interest to facilitate the combination of measures, policies, distributional effects that not taking action or taking action could have when dealing with climate. I think that there is no doubt on science, no doubt on what we need to do, no doubt on the political official engagement. Do you think so? Is there a doubt? Or there is no doubt? Do you remember what happened with the Paris Agreement? Everybody came in to sign in so quickly, so fast, that we were all very happy. And now when trying to think what does it mean, what is this increasing gap, what does this increasing gap from what we agreed to do and what we are doing, we come back to the previous consideration. Why, if there has been an official engagement, we have not been able to do things that we promised to do? And this is where we need to fix our position. We should not accept any type of withdrawal. We should not accept any type of silence on the commitment. We know that inertia is also a relevant principle, and things are not easy to be changed, but we need to change things. We cannot stay accepting because of the difficulty, the lack of action, or no change at all. I think that this goes beyond the COP venue. The COP venue is very important because something that it is being challenged is the rule-based international order. And we need the multilateralism, the global cooperation in order to face global challenges. So we need to ensure this complicated bureaucratic process that enables a further capacity to act together. But action and ambition should not remain just blocked within these walls. We need action and ambition everywhere. We need action and ambition at the international level in other venues, finance, energy cooperation, innovation, science, capacity to observe our planet and to understand where the main causes of the problems that we are facing come from. And we need action also at the domestic agenda, every single domestic agenda. We cannot hide behind the international community to say we are not going to take measures at home. Transportation, energy, urban planning, education, health, there are so many things at stake that we need to generalize climate action everywhere. It's not anymore a question of ambition. It's a question of need, simple need, common need to act. And citizens, especially youth, coming up to the street saying, hey, this is not a storytelling thing. This is something that we demand as a right, as a need for survival. It's quite a strong voice. And making your own message, being part and echoing the message of science is quite powerful. I think that there are hopeful examples of this transformative power of people thinking in the very emotional aspects of our life, our family, our children, our grandchildren, asking for being serious on that. And we count on you all. We count on the society. We need you. We need you to make things happen faster. On the political intelligence, to do it properly at home, paying attention to the social concerns, but also to the fairness concerns. And I could not renounce to our common goal, our goal that was already fixed, set, signed, and accepted by everyone. The first international treaty entering into force in less than, 1 year and a half. So please, let's stay together. Let's push for more, and let's identify and name and shame those who feel the fear to do more. So to understand if it is fair and they need solidarity and help to do more, or if it is just not willing to do anything or anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I would like to invite to take the floor to my friend Jennifer Morgan, Executive Director for Greenpeace.
Good morning. So I've been taking part in these COPs for 25 years. And I've never seen the divide between what's happening on the inside of these walls and what's happening on the outside so large. For a quarter of a century, I've been coming to these events to urge policymakers to listen to the science, to find a way for the world to work together on what I thought and still think is a solvable crisis, and to shine a light on the nefarious self-interests that pollute our planet. But clearly they were not listening. And now we are in different times. The impacts are happening all around us, coming up harder and faster than we ever imagined would be the case and happening already in 2019. There is an extraordinary groundswell of awareness and youth and people power that is present in a way that we have never seen before. The solutions are affordable and right in front of our faces. But where are the champions? Where are the leaders? And where are the adults in the room? Frankly, I'm angry. And I'm tired of hearing from leaders and governments and negotiators of all the different things they cannot do, especially when it's so darn straightforward. If political leaders were responding in a way commensurate with the science that they know, the facts that have been laid out by scientists for decades, and acting with the level of determination and the human ingenuity and the morality needed, well, what would they be doing? Well, they would bring together the top brains across their society to develop socially just climate policy and actions to phase out fossil fuel and deforestation. And then they would put them into law immediately, backing up these climate emergency declarations with climate emergency laws, a set of emergency measures that drive down emissions at the pace and scale needed to stay in the 1.5 climate budget. They would regulate the financial sector to take into account the climate risks and make sure banks are no longer funding fossil fuels and deforestation. They would ensure that any climate policy is paid for by those who can afford it and not those who are struggling to make ends meet. They would stop listening to the carbon major corporations that are all around these buildings, as you know, and they would start listening to the voices of their children all around the world. And they would make sure that the carbon majors pay for the damages occurring, the devastation of the lost homes of families, and you know what? They would show up for those people who have lost loved ones. And they would act as if their house was on fire, just as Greta has asked them to. But they aren't yet. So how can that be? It's just incomprehensible. It is true that we are living in dark climate politics days. There are shadows that lurk behind the curtains. The billions of dollars of the fossil fuel industry lobbying, making people fat and corrupt as they condemn the world and all its beauty and diversity to devastation. But I have not given up hope. Even after 25 years coming to these things, I have not given up hope that humanity can and will find a way forward and a way out. Because if I did, it would mean that I'd given up on humanity itself, and I am not ready to do that. So let's stop this here and now. We can stop this here and now at this COP. There can be a signal that this is going to change. Optimally, a decision that mirrors the UN Secretary General's call to action. A decision that has science as its guiding light, recognizes the urgency, and declares a climate emergency. Leaders should have come here already with stronger targets and commitments. I mean, they should be here announcing what they're doing more. So the least they can do is come and commit to increase those targets in Glasgow next year, where they have to agree a climate pact, a global Green Deal that protects human rights and puts people and the planet at its center. The heart of the Paris Agreement is still beating, but barely. Don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Now I would like to invite to stage to take the lecture to Mrs. Greta Thunberg.
Hi. A year and a half ago, I didn't speak to anyone unless I really had to. But then I found a reason to speak. Since then, I've given many speeches and learned that when you talk in public, you should start with something personal or emotional to get everyone's attention. Say things like, "Our house is on fire, I want you to panic," or "How dare you?" But today I will not do that, because then those phrases are all that people focus on. They don't remember the facts, the very reason why I say those things in the first place. We no longer have time to leave out the science. For about a year, I have been constantly talking about our rapidly declining carbon budgets over and over again. But since that is still being ignored, I will just keep repeating it. In Chapter 2, on page 108 in the SR 1.5 IPCC report that came out last year, it says that if we are to have a 67% chance of limiting the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius, we had, on January 1st, 2018, 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit in that budget. And of course, that number is much lower today, as we emit about 42 gigatons of CO2 every year, including land use. With today's emissions levels, that remaining budget will be gone within about 8 years. These numbers aren't anyone's opinions or political views. This is the current best available science. Though many scientists suggest these figures are too moderate, these are the ones that have been accepted through the IPCC. And please note that these figures are global and therefore do not say anything about the aspect of equity, which is absolutely essential to make the Paris Agreement work on a global scale. That means that richer countries need to do their fair share and get down to real zero emissions much faster, and then help poorer countries do the same, so people in less fortunate parts of the world can raise their living standards. These numbers also don't include most feedback loops, non-linear tipping points, or additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution. Most models assume, however, that future generations will somehow be able to suck hundreds of billions of tons of CO2 out of the air with technologies that do not exist in the scale required and maybe never will. The approximate 67% chance budget is the one with the highest odds given by the IPCC. And now we have less than 340 gigatons of CO2 left to emit in that budget to share fairly. And why is it so important to stay below 1.5 degrees? Because even at 1 degree, people are dying from the climate crisis. Because that is what the United Science calls for, to avoid destabilizing the climate, so that we have the best possible chance to avoid setting off irreversible chain reactions, such as melting glaciers, polar ice, and thawing Arctic permafrost. Every fraction of a degree matters. So there it is again. This is my message. This is what I want you to focus on. So please tell me, how do you react to these numbers without feeling at least some level of panic? How do you respond to the fact that basically nothing is being done about this without feeling the slightest bit of anger? And how do you communicate this without sounding alarmist? I would really like to know. Since the Paris Agreement, global banks have invested $1.9 trillion in fossil fuels. 100 companies are responsible for 71% of global emissions. The G20 countries account for almost 80% of total emissions. The richest 10% of the world's population produce half of our CO2 emissions, while the poorest 50% account for just 1/10. We indeed have some work to do, but some more than others. Recently, a handful of rich countries pledged to reduce their emissions of greenhouse gases by so and so many % by this or that date, or to become climate neutral or net zero in so and so many years. This may sound impressive at first glance, but even though the intentions may be good, this is not leadership. This is not leading, this is misleading. Because most of these pledges do not include aviation, shipping, and imported and exported goods and consumption. They do, however, include the possibility of countries to offset their emissions elsewhere. These pledges don't include the immediate yearly reduction rates needed for wealthy countries, which is necessary to stay within the remaining tiny budget. 0 in 2050 means nothing if high emission continues even for a few years, then the remaining budget will be gone. Without seeing the full picture, we will not solve this crisis. Finding holistic solutions is what the COP should be all about. But instead, it seems to have turned into some kind of opportunity for countries to negotiate loopholes and to avoid raising their ambition. Countries are finding clever ways around having to take real action, like double counting emissions reductions and moving their emissions overseas, and walking back on their promises to increase ambition, or refusing to pay for solutions or loss and damage. This has to stop. What we need is real, drastic emission cuts at the source. But of course, just reducing emissions is not enough. Our greenhouse gas emissions has to stop. To stay below 1.5 degrees, we need to keep the carbon in the ground. Only setting up distant dates and saying things which give the impression of that action is underway will most likely do more harm than good, because the changes required are still nowhere in sight. The politics needed does not exist today, despite what you might hear from world leaders. And I still believe that the biggest danger is not inaction. The real danger is when politicians and CEOs are making it look like real action is happening when, in fact, almost nothing is being done apart from clever accounting and creative PR. I have been fortunate enough to be able to travel around the world. And my experience is that the lack of awareness is the same everywhere, not the least amongst those elected to lead us. There is no sense of urgency whatsoever. Our leaders are not behaving as if we were in an emergency. In an emergency, you change your behavior. If there's a child standing in the middle of the road and cars are coming at full speed, you don't look away because it's too uncomfortable. You immediately run out and rescue that child. And without that sense of urgency, how can we, the people, understand that we are facing a real crisis? And if the people are not fully aware of what is going on, then they will not put pressure on the people in power to act. And without pressure from the people, our leaders can get away with basically not doing anything, which is where we are now. And around it goes. In just 3 weeks, we will enter a new decade. A decade that will define our future. Right now, we are desperate for any sign of hope. Well, I'm telling you, there is hope. I have seen it. But it does not come from the governments or corporations. It comes from the people. The people who have been unaware but are now starting to wake up. And once we become aware, we change. People can change. People are ready for change. And that is the hope, because we have democracy. And democracy is happening all the time, not just on election day, but every second and every hour. It is public opinion that runs the free world. In fact, every great change throughout history has come from the people. We do not have to wait. We can start the change right now. We, the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greta. Now I would like my friend, His Excellency Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, Minister of Environment and Energy of Costa Rica, if you can please join us taking the lecture. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Gonzalo. Thank you all. Good day. My name is Carlos Manuel Rodriguez. I'm the Minister of Environment and Energy of the government of Costa Rica. As you can all understand, the daily work of a minister like me is extremely busy. Some days are very exciting, some days are very sad, and even some days are very boring. But I normally do two things that are very, very important to me. One is the early morning run, and then the late dinner conversation with the most beautiful wife in the world and my 4 kids. My 4 kids, 2 girls, 2 boys, in between 16 and 24. That dinner conversation has been turning very interesting in my home, because my kid has been reading a lot of information, reading the findings of IPBES, reading IPCC reports, and many other issues around, the state of the planet and the challenges that we have in front of us. Every day, the questions from my kids are becoming a headache to me. I'm unable to answer many of the questions and respond properly to my kids to many of their questions. 4 weeks ago, we had a great conversation about the fact that we don't need to invent a carbon absorption machine when we have nature and forests and trees. 3 weeks ago, the conversation was around how many mammals are there in the planet. Do you know that 96% of the mammals of these planets are humans, cows, horses, pigs, and chickens, and just 4% of the mammals of these planets are wild animals? The latest conversation I had with my kids was around conservation and restoration. I asked them, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they said, well, I want to be a conservationist like you, Dad. But one of my kids, the younger one, Elena, she said, no, I don't want to work in conservation. I want to work in ecological restoration, because that will be the future of my generation, ecological restoration. Even though I believe deep in my heart that I'm a rebel, environmental hippie from Costa Rica, my kids see me as part of the establishment. I represent the establishment. I represent the adults. Today, I want to chair a panel that reflects what I have every single night I'm at home, that discussion with my kids, the discussion within the youth, the young leaders, and the policymakers, the decision makers, and I want to introduce them and ask them to join us over here. So thank you, Gonzalo.
Thank you very much, Carlos Manuel. We will be then be leaving the floor and the stage and leave you here, Greta, with Minister Rodriguez. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Minister. So I would like to ask and join us up here in the front, Mr. Axel van Trotsenburg, Managing Director of the World Bank. Also, I would like, Greta, you can stay here. Okay. Elena Brandon, Head of International Relations from the European Commission. Please join us over here. Hilda Flavia, a young leader from Uganda. Freddie Melina, representative from the Aymara community, and Jacqueline Avila, director from the Council of Women from Chile, Licananti. Please join us over here. Thank you. Thank you all. So thanks for being here and joining us. And my first question is to Hilda. You know, Hilda, we heard the statements by Greta, by Johan, one of the top scientists in this planet, talking, you know, reminding us that there are boundaries in this planet, and the minister. And we talk about this environmental crisis and emergency. Can you tell us, in your own experience and words, why is this climate, why we have this emergency, and what do you see in Uganda? You got a microphone in front of you.
Thank you. First of all, I am happy to be here because I am among the few young people who made it from the global south. I do not understand why the most affected countries are always underrepresented. Government officials are, of course, very many because they follow the huge allowances that come with such meetings. I do not know. I did not come here for any allowance, and I don't expect any. I came here to represent millions of African young people who are bearing the brunt of climate crisis. I am here to speak for all generations to come. As I speak to you right now, extreme weather events are killing people in my country. I'm very disturbed that Western media is silent on the climate emergency happening in Uganda and the whole of East African region. I am the voice of the dying children, displaced women, and people suffering at the hands of climate crisis created by rich countries. Voices from the global south deserve to be heard. Animals, forests, fish, and birds from Africa may not count to you as they do to us, but at least make us count. We are humans who do not deserve to suffer a crisis that we did not create. The British named my country the Pearl of Africa, and I've been dreaming of seeing the meaning of this. But every day that passes, our rainforests are cleared, clean air polluted, and wildlife attacked. Climate injustice forced me to risk my education and fight for everyone. I rather fail my exams than fail my generation. You should understand what we pass through every day. African climate activists are determined to continue fighting for climate justice, even when no one cares to pay attention. Our interest is not in attention, but action from leaders and everyone. What will I tell my next generation if they ask me where I was and what I did when nature was being destroyed by selfish and greedy individuals? Stop being self-centered and treat all lives equal. Why are we acting as if we still have time? We all talk of climate emergency, but we don't act like there's any. Dear leaders, we need leadership on climate action, not talks. For how long will you keep negotiating? You've been negotiating for the last 25 years, even before I was born. Do you want the whole Africa to first perish before you start acting? Do you even care if we all drowned in floods? If you don't know how to resurrect a dead person, then why are you polluting us with toxic air? If you can't bring back forests that once grew where there is now a desert, why are you backing timber business in Gabon? I will end with a quote from Suzuki. He said, "If you don't know how to fix it, please stop breaking it." Every Friday, we continue to go on the streets and strike for our future. We do not end on that. Me and my friends in my country and other countries in the global south and other countries around the world continue to do what we can do best to fight for our future. I engage in a luxury cleanup activity on the second largest freshwater lake we have in our country and in the world. And I do this with all my heart and with love for the coming generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hilda. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good. Axel, people calling for a climate emergency distrust the establishment. Why should young people today look at us at this panel, ministers and leaders from international entities, the private sector, like, the World Bank, and trust you and me?
Well, I think nobody needs to trust somebody just by talking. I think trust has to be established, that you have to be credible and to act. And I think that the challenge of a development organization like the World Bank is to focus on poverty. And there is still enormous extreme poverty, namely about 800 million. And there are more poor people who are maybe not extreme poor, but are poor. And the big risk is that climate change risks to throw more and more people into poverty, and not in Western Europe, and not in the United States, but as Hilda said, in Africa and in other countries. And that's unacceptable. And that's the reason why we need to act. Now, indeed, I agree that people are getting sick and tired of all the speeches and the announcements and no money and no action. So the World Bank publishes a lot on climate. And we have also dramatic title, Turning Down the Heat, etc. And that may be good to create more awareness. But at the end of the day, the people who are living and being affected, be it in the Pacific Islands or in Africa, or in Bangladesh, they don't care about that publication. They care, are you going to do programs? And that is what we have been fighting for, particularly with a focus on Africa. And over the last couple of years, we have basically been able to double our commitments there. And we are talking about a 3-year program of about $50 billion. And it is still not enough, because the international community has to do more. You can do it alone, but in the end, it can only be done by all. And that requires much more international solidarity, less talk, and then when we are declaring solidarity, real help. And this is maybe one of the frustrations for many people in Africa or in Bangladesh or elsewhere, that they feel let down by the speeches and lack of action. And I think they're right. They're completely right. And so what we have to do is fight more for this. And certainly, I don't want to be seen as an organization, say, well, the others are not doing, therefore I don't need to do anything. In the end, you have to take your responsibility, and every organization, every person has to take that personally and fight for that. And that's what we are doing. I don't think that we are perfect, but I think what we have to do it is with community participation. It is not the project that you do only with the government. You need the NGOs in it. You need also the private sector there, because the task is enormous and they will have to participate. It is at the end of the day a call to everybody. And I think that is our challenge. And we have to be impatient to act, and impatient to basically postpone the next decision. And at the same time, when we are talking about crisis, and particularly when they are affected, we have to act immediately. We have at least established crisis response mechanisms that allow us to act immediately, and that is important, particularly when you are thinking of people living in the small island states in the Pacific or the Caribbean. When a hurricane or a cyclone hits, the damage is not a couple of percentage of GDP, it's 10 to 200%. It's completely destroyed. And therefore you need support. And that's what we are trying to do. We need more, we need to fight that. And I think the only way we can do it is that we keep on pushing each other to this frontier, that we together have to solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Axel. Thank you. Thank you very much. Freddie, our region, yours and mine, Latin America and the Caribbean, faces great, I would say huge, social challenges. And many things need to change in our region. How can climate action help us build a better and more just Latin American Caribbean?
Kamisaraki, Hilatanata Kuyatanata, Jena Jarahuico Freddy Sebastián Medina. I will speak in Spanish for my own people. Soy Freddy Sebastián Medina, vengo de la cultura aymara. La verdad es que la ciencia ya habló y fue muy clara en los informes. Esos informes nos dicen que es el bosque nativo el que realmente tiene la capacidad significativa de tomar el carbono desde el aire. No es la tecnología lo que nos va a salvar o que tiene la capacidad suficiente de salvarnos captando el carbono. La tecnología sí puede ayudarnos hacia una transición energética. Fíjense que la transición energética no necesita solamente una fuente de energía, el Tata Inti, el sol, la energía maremotriz del mar, la energía eólica del viento. No bastan las fuentes o el volcán en la geotérmica, porque esa energía que está bendecida en el norte de Chile, el sur del Perú, por muchas de estas fuentes, hay que transportarla y hacerla disponible a todos y todas. Y para eso, o eso significa, que necesitamos materias primas, como por ejemplo el cobre y el litio. Pero fíjense qué coincidencia. Esos recursos naturales están en territorios indígenas, ¿sí? Territorio licanantay, territorio aymara, quechua. Por lo tanto, para extraer eso primero tiene que haber un plan sustentable. Y hay buenos ejemplos técnicos de eso, pero eso no es suficiente. Porque las comunidades indígenas tienen que asegurar, o aquí se tiene que asegurar, que haya un diálogo de igual a igual, en iguales condiciones, entre las comunidades indígenas, comunidades locales, para ocupar esos territorios o que estén cerca de los territorios de las comunidades indígenas. Es por eso que en el artículo 6 es necesario colocar derechos humanos en cuanto a su lenguaje y también derecho para los pueblos originarios. Sí, Jayaya. Es más, qué coincidencia que estemos no solamente en el país llamado España, sino en la cultura española, que tiene mucha historia con América Latina y precisamente con los pueblos indígenas. No solamente historia, sino que también presentemente, porque muchas de las empresas que tributan en la Unión Europea también extraen o usan, o por qué no decirlo, usufructan de recursos naturales presentes en América Latina y también en África. Esas empresas también deben dialogar en igual cantidad o calidad de condiciones con los pueblos indígenas. Así que, por favor, damas y caballeros, gente aquí presente de los altos mandos, necesitamos derechos humanos como lenguaje y también los derechos de los pueblos indígenas en el artículo 6. Jayaya, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Muchísimas gracias, don Freddy. Thank you very much. And now Jacqueline Ávila. Jacqueline, ¿por qué es tan difícil? Díganos, ¿por qué cree usted que es tan difícil que los derechos de las mujeres, los derechos de los jóvenes, de las minorías y en general los derechos humanos estén en el centro de las negociaciones, los acuerdos y las conversaciones climáticas? I just ask Jacqueline to give us her impression why it's been so difficult to bring up front in the climate negotiations rights of women, rights of the youth, the minorities within the larger, bigger human rights principles and values. Why it is so difficult to be able to put it in the center of our negotiations and conversations?
Alabalti alibalti, sensak pichao licao, acá aquí hay Jacqueline Ávila, Cochayá, San Pedro, Atacama, Chile. La pregunta que usted me hace tiene relación por qué en este momento yo me encuentro aquí. A nosotras las mujeres a nivel mundial, independientemente si es de una clase social o que tenga que ver con pueblos indígenas o no indígenas, nos cuesta demasiado ingresar a estos eventos. En especial cuando uno es mujer y mujer indígena. Sin embargo, creemos que en el artículo 6 debe ingresarse también el tema de género, la cuota de equidad para todas nosotras, poder sacar la voz y poder ser valoradas dentro de nuestra condición indígena, porque para los indígenas nuestra cosmovisión parte por una dualidad, y la dualidad dice que el hombre y la mujer deben caminar juntos, porque uno depende del otro y el otro depende del otro. Y eso habla mucho de cómo se marca un espacio y un camino allanado. Pero cuando vemos que los hombres quieren pasar por sobre nosotras, nosotras debemos sacar la voz, porque somos mujeres y debemos ser valientes ante estas situaciones y también ante situaciones climáticas, porque somos nosotras las que sentimos en primer lugar cómo esto nos afecta, el cambio del clima, el cómo a nosotros nos avasalla toda esta situación empresarial y extractivista. Sin embargo, estamos dispuestas a sentarnos a una mesa de diálogo. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Jacqueline. I now turn it over to Elena. She's the head of international relationships at the EU. And there's been a lot of very good news lately coming out of the EU. So we heard that, we heard the science, Johan, very clearly. And we heard the demands of the youth and minority group, gender. What are the response of the G20 or European Union, more particularly, to action in the sense of the climate emergency and the urgency for action?
Thank you, Minister. Firstly, let me just express how much of a privilege it is to share this panel with Greta and such inspiring speakers. Greta, I was telling my children, who are 11, 12, and 13, yesterday that I'll be sharing the podium with you, and they said, please, Mom, tell them she's our hero. You have given the voice and face to so many who have legitimate concerns and who really can't sleep sometimes at night because they find the world a worrying place. As a policymaker, as a technocrat, as a civil servant, I've spent more than 16 years with different politicians, with different governments, and with different priorities. And in that job, I've been able to observe people who exercise different arts. There is the art of denial, sometimes even cowardness, which refuses to take into account the real world, the facts, the science. Then there is the art of passive acceptance, which is even more worrying. That is something that just hides its head in the sand, says that we can't change things. It's not worth doing it. We should just go on as we are. And then there are those who exercise the art of possibility. And today I'm really proud to be here as well, because today the new European Commission will be adopting the European Green Deal. It is a very bold, pioneering, unprecedented proposal that will profoundly change our economy. Because climate change is no longer an agenda of environment. It is an agenda that encompasses the whole economy. It is about industrial revolution. It's about modernizing our way of thinking. It's about shaping a society, rebooting it, if you like, to be fit for future, to be fit for the societal challenges that we face, and to respond to the demands of the youth, to respond to the demands of our children. And we will not stop in the EU. We will work tirelessly with our international partners in the countries because, and at the risk of stating the obvious, the Paris Agreement in itself is not going to make a difference. The Paris Agreement provides us with a framework for the governments to act. It provides us with transparency and a mechanism to come together to revisit the ambition, but the action has to happen in the countries, and not just by the ministers of environment, also the ministers of central planning, the budget, the prime ministers. We all need to insist on that. And I would like to say that please do keep up your insistence, because as Greta, you very well said, the governments do what the public demands, and the public will be heard and must be heard. So with those words, I don't claim that the EU has a silver bullet or an answer to all evils, but at least we are acting, and we mean that to be a central priority for the next Commission, as has been stated by Ursula von der Leyen and my new boss, Frans Timmermans, who definitely has a full personal conviction for this agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alina, and congratulations for those great news, and I hope that the other larger economies keep track on what the EU is doing. And now, last but not least, Greta. In Costa Rica, we have quite a few heroes, and one particular hero for me is Cristiana Figueres. Christiana always talks about two emotions when she's talking about climate change. She talks about outrage and optimism. And she thinks that, a good blend and mix of both of them will keep things moving forward. What are your thoughts on this dual sentiment that Christiana constantly expresses?
I completely agree with her. We need a balance of optimism and outrage. We need optimism to keep going and to not give up. And optimism comes from action. And once we start to act, there will be a lot of hope. And we need outrage to be able to step out of our comfort zones. And I'm sure that if people heard what was going on and what was said during these COPs, during these meetings, they would be outraged. So yeah, we need both of them in a very fine balance.
Thank you so much, Greta. And with this sentiment of outrage and optimism, I want to close this panel for today. I want to thank all of them. Please join me giving a big hand to our panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
resource-rich countries can conduct adequate domestic investigations.
Et au Least Developed Countries Fund à hauteur de 17,7 millions d'euros. La Belgique contribuera à hauteur de 125,1 millions d'euros. Nous soulignons également le caractère bleu de la COP qui répond au rapport spécial sur l'océan du GIEC et nous avons entendu et intégré les demandes des jeunes et de la société civile. Leur appel à l'action urgente nous oblige à être ambitieux. Soyons donc à la hauteur de leurs demandes. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Mahmoud Abubakar, Minister of Environment of Nigeria. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Madam President, Excellencies, on behalf of His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, and the Nigerian delegation, I have the pleasure to congratulate you on your election as the President of COP25 and assure you of our full support as you lead our deliberations. I also appreciate the government and people of Spain for holding the COP25. The political momentum generated by the recent UN General Assembly on climate change in September at the margin of the 74th United Nations General Assembly and the summit of the head of state and government convened by His Excellency the President of Spain at the start of this session provide the appropriate context for engagement at this conference. The outcome of this conference must result in quick resolutions of all outstanding issues pertaining to the Paris Agreement rulebook as carried over from COP25 to enable its operationalization and strengthening global response to the threat of climate change and to ensure a sustainable future for our people and planet. Madam President, Nigeria faces grave social, economic, and environmental threats consequent to climate change due to our country's dependence on climate-sensitive resources. Climate change impacts are already threatening the survival and livelihood of our people. The devastating loss of rangeland and croplands to desertification each year in the northern part of the country, resource conflict, loss of forest cover, and threatening sea level rise on the significant coastline in the southern part of the country are a stark reminder of our vulnerability to climate change. In this regard, the country is advancing policies and initiatives aimed at addressing significant challenges occasioned by climate change, such as reviving the Lake Chad, increasing her forest cover, deploying smart renewable energy solutions, halting and reversing desertification and land degradation, flooding, ocean surge, gender mainstreaming, as well as engaging the youth in climate governance. We therefore reiterate our unwavering commitment towards fulfillment of our country's obligation under the Paris Agreement and actualization of its goals in its nationally determined contributions. We acknowledge the support of our global partners and call for continued international partnership to reverse the negative effect of climate change. Nigeria has also embraced issuances of green bonds to raise finance for implementation of green projects, which has helped the government to fundamentally reorient its financial flows within the economy through the greening of the federal budget and capital market. It hoped that the issuance of the third green bond would triple Nigeria's GHG emission reduction, stimulate more economic growth, and catalyze investment in social programs. Madam President, as we round up this conference, Nigeria expects to see the conclusion of the review of the Warsaw Pact mechanism for loss and damage, agreement on Article 6 on market mechanisms, continued support and enhanced financial provision by developed parties towards NDC enhancement processes, and full implementation of the activities thereof to raise ambition and pursue a long-term climate agenda. goal of mobilizing $100 billion by 2020, refining the technical aspect of the transparency framework, capacity building, adaptation, and the decision on gender action plans, amongst others. Nigeria fully aligned itself with the call by the AG and at COP25 expeditiously, as a matter of priority, conclude negotiation on the special needs and circumstances of Africa and the call for the simplification of the guidelines for accessing funds under the Green Climate Fund, as well as the need for the GCF to remain accountable under the COP. In conclusion, it is obvious that the challenges of climate change are enormous. Nigeria calls for sustainable, joint and collaborative effort to tackle the problem, and Nigeria is willing to continue to be part of the solution. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Richard Bouchon, Minister of Communications, Climate Action and Environment of Ireland. Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Thanks very much indeed, Madam President. I suppose as we sit here, we can hear the call of the coming generation ringing in our ears from next door. And I think we have to pay a great debt of gratitude to the momentum that young people have created. We also need a debt of gratitude to the IPCC, who have given us the scientific evidence, which is now continuously hardening to show the real damage that climate change is having in our communities. We now must step up to the place, and I'm pleased to be a part of the European Union, which today will have its new Commission announcing its Green Deal, which will enhance the ambition of the European Union and its members to address this huge global challenge. Ireland is also moving to enshrine the net zero by 2050 in our laws. We are joining the Carbon Neutrality Coalition, which has its meeting today, which I hope will build momentum. We've also spent the last 12 months very much underpinning those ambitions with concrete policy instruments in our climate action plan. And some of the lessons we've learned there, I think, do have relevance to others. We built very strongly on a citizens' assembly foundation. I think that has given us leverage across our community. We've identified the roadmap, we're delivering concrete action, and we're creating the governance structure embedded in law that will keep the accountability of policymakers to achieve those goals. The examples of some of the things we've achieved in the last 12 months are, for example, we've banned the ended oil exploration in our waters. We've committed to an €80 per tonne carbon price and already started that journey. We've ring-fenced all the proceeds from that money to enhance climate action in our communities, and we've established a just transition mechanism to support those who are adversely impacted in the change. Today, we're also committing to double our commitment to the Green Fund 2020 to 2023, because it's so important that we assist others to make the change. I'm very conscious that we are the first generation to whom people can genuinely point the finger at us and say, we will pass on this globe in a worse condition than we found it. So the responsibility is huge upon us to act at this COP and at its successor. But equally, I'm conscious that civilization has risen to its highest level of creativity and collaboration when it is faced with an existential threat. And this is just such a time when we as a global community must rise to new levels of collaboration and creativity to address this fundamental challenge to the world as we've enjoyed it, and the world indeed which we should pass on intact to the coming generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. It is my pleasure to introduce His Excellency, Mr. João Pedro Matos Fernandes, Minister of Environment and Climate Action of Portugal. Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Senhora Presidente, caras e caros colegas, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Congratulo a presidência chilena, o governo de Espanha também, pelo empenho na organização desta COP, que nos permite reafirmar o sentido de urgência, de compromisso e cooperação necessários na resposta global às alterações climáticas. Quanto mais adiarmos a ação climática, mais intensos serão os efeitos das alterações que ela provoca e maiores os custos da inação. O compromisso de Portugal com o combate às alterações climáticas no quadro do Acordo de Paris é firme e determinado. Por isso, submetemos, um ano antes do previsto, a nossa estratégia de longo prazo para a redução de emissões de gases com efeito de estufa, que consagra o objetivo de alcançar a neutralidade carbónica em Portugal até 2050. O nosso caminho está traçado. O nosso roteiro estabelece a trajetória de descarbonização para alcançar em 2050 uma redução de emissões superior a 85% e a compensação das restantes emissões através do uso do solo e das florestas. Destaco que, para isso, precisamos de uma floresta mais sustentável e resiliente, o que exige uma nova abordagem à paisagem, o reconhecimento dos serviços de ecossistemas e a adoção de soluções de base natural. Porque a próxima década é crucial, redefinimos com ambição as metas para 2030. Reduzir em 55% as emissões, alcançar 35% de eficiência energética e atingir 47% de renováveis no consumo final e total de energia. Para reduzir 40% das emissões dos transportes, estamos a apostar na mobilidade elétrica, em autocarros de elevado desempenho ambiental e reduzimos muito significativamente o preço dos transportes coletivos. Foi uma medida de choque, mas com este programa, em apenas 6 meses, aumentamos em 12% a sua utilização e em 35% a venda do número de títulos mensais vendidos nas 2 áreas metropolitanas. Atualmente, 55% da eletricidade já é de origem renovável e até 2030 chegaremos aos 80%, eliminando já 2021 uma, 2023 outras, as 2 centrais de produção de eletricidade a partir de carvão. O mais recente impulso do solar permite-nos consolidar a ambição de duplicar a capacidade instalada renovável, que já é apreciável, até 2030. Batemos um recorde mundial no último leilão que lançámos, conseguindo que o preço do solar fique a 14,76 euros por megawatt-hora, e esta é uma enorme oportunidade para baixar os custos para a economia e para as famílias também. Abraçamos a inovação e a criação de novas oportunidades que esta nos proporciona. Olhamos o desenvolvimento da cadeia de valor do hidrogênio e dos gases renováveis com interesse e vemos aqui uma alternativa para os setores mais intensivos em energia se descarbonizarem. Caros colegas, temos de ser capazes de salvaguardar o espírito de cooperação global que resulta de Paris. As regras têm de ser pilares sólidos para a operacionalização da ação e catalisadores da ambição. Queremos alcançar um resultado positivo no que diz respeito ao artigo 6, que apoia maior ambição e garanta plena integridade da mitigação, sob pena de pôr em causa a credibilidade do sistema. Estes mecanismos de mercado têm que criar incentivos fortes para reduzir emissões agora e no futuro, e para tal temos que assegurar que não ocorre dupla contagem da redução de emissões. O próximo ano será fundamental para afirmar e consolidar o Acordo de Paris. Portugal está a fazer a sua parte e aproveita para encorajar todos os países a estabelecer metas concretas e a aplicar as políticas necessárias para reverter o aumento das emissões. Senhora Presidente da Copa Azul, Portugal partilha a visão do Chile sobre a necessidade de aprofundar a relação entre oceanos e alterações climáticas. Aumentar a ambição climática global seria o melhor contributo da UNFCCC do Acordo de Paris para a saúde dos oceanos e em junho do próximo ano, Quênia e Portugal co-organizarão a Conferência das Nações Unidas sobre os Oceanos em Lisboa, sendo todos muito bem-vindos. Senhora Presidente, concluo, caros colegas, os apelos à emergência climática resultam da constatação que estas não são um problema das gerações futuras. Somos nós que temos que agir. E se em Portugal já sentimos os seus efeitos, a adaptação é uma prioridade. O tempo está a esgotar-se e já é quase tarde. Portugal vai cumprir, Portugal está a cumprir e não admite que os outros falhem. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Fernando Andrés López Larrinaga, Minister of Environment and Natural Resources of El Salvador. Excellency, you have the floor.
Señora Presidente, Excelencias, distinguidos delegados, quisiéramos expresar inicialmente nuestro agradecimiento a Chile, al Reino de España y a la Ciudad de Madrid por la magnífica hospitalidad y organización de esta trascendental Conferencia de las Partes. Tal como lo dijo nuestro presidente Nayib Bukele en la Asamblea General de la ONU en Nueva York, el mundo ha cambiado, pero la Asamblea General sigue siendo la misma. Igual nos pasa acá, el mundo avanza, las nuevas tecnologías predominan, el cambio climático no se detiene y los formatos de estas asambleas siguen invariables, obsoletos. Nuestros conciudadanos esperan de nosotros acciones, hechos. Y es nuestro compromiso como servidores públicos actuar, no hablar. Es nuestro compromiso que las decisiones que tomemos sean del conocimiento público, aprovechando las nuevas tecnologías para que todos podamos participar de un tema tan trascendental. Y como se trata de hablar con el ejemplo, en apenas 6 meses que tenemos en el gobierno, hemos logrado, con un parlamento totalmente en contra, quitar los aranceles a la importación de vehículos eléctricos, un gran paso a la electromovilidad en nuestro país. De igual forma, hemos ratificado el convenio Marpol de la Organización Marítima Internacional, que es un mecanismo que regula la contaminación ocasionada por los buques. Además, desde la presidencia pro tempore de CCAD, estamos promoviendo la integración de las políticas medioambientales de la región SICA, que somos 8 países, mediante iniciativas que buscan reducir la generación de gases de efecto invernadero. Hemos propuesto también que las reuniones de países, que somos 8 ministros, se realicen de manera virtual, ahorrando tiempo y recursos de los ciudadanos. Todos conocemos la destrucción causada por los efectos del cambio climático en el mundo, principalmente en los países más vulnerables. Efectos que se están manifestando con mucha antelación, se están manifestando antes de lo que había sido previsto por la ciencia. Es importante que confiemos en la ciencia, pero que también atendamos a los principios de la ética, sin los cuales estos cursos de acción serían incoherentes, pero también serían injustos. Por ello, a riesgo de resultar redundantes, debemos insistir en los principios de equidad y de responsabilidades comunes, pero proporcionales. Recordemos que la Convención nació basada en la ciencia, pero también ha sido edificada por la ética. Debemos evaluar nuestras acciones, debemos evaluar nuestras respuestas, porque la construcción del cambio climático no es nueva y solo así estaremos en condiciones de juzgar el contenido ético de nuestras contribuciones al Acuerdo de París. Cada una de nuestras naciones sabe con qué es capaz de contribuir a causa del enfrentamiento al cambio climático, sin que eso signifique sacrificar su derecho al desarrollo sostenible y superación de la pobreza. Voy a ser específico, uno de los temas de agenda de negociación de esta COP, la revisión del mecanismo de Varsovia para pérdidas y daños. Realmente tenemos varios migrantes centroamericanos que están teniendo un éxodo masivo hacia otros países debido al cambio climático. Sin embargo, este tipo de mecanismos aún no han hecho nada para sacarlos de su miseria. Con ellos queremos poner en evidencia la importancia y necesidad de fortalecer estos mecanismos con financiamiento nuevo y adicional, con un grupo especial de trabajo que concrete la ampliación de la acción y el apoyo que se espera. Esta tragedia de los migrantes no ha sido desatendida. Nosotros hemos destinado recursos públicos disponibles para desarrollar acciones de adaptación. Con el apoyo de la cooperación internacional, hemos aprobado financiamientos que impulsarán intervenciones de adaptación basadas en ecosistemas de mayor escala en nuestro corredor seco, proyecto que el país estará aportando de sus propios recursos 3/4 partes del valor de su monto. Adicionalmente, nos complace informar que hemos realizado progresos sustantivos en implementar nuestras NDCs originales, entre las que se ha avanzado el 20% de la meta de restauración de tierra degradada que nos pusimos para 2030, con los consecuentes cobeneficios en mitigación asociados a ella. Con lo anterior, se evidencia el nivel de esfuerzo y ambición que El Salvador está realizando para responder al desafío del cambio climático y atender a su población en mayor situación de vulnerabilidad. Pero este esfuerzo no resultará sostenible en el tiempo ni califica como equitativo de acuerdo a los principios y provisiones establecidos por esta convención. El Salvador está cambiando. 4 de nuestros 6 meses de gobierno han sido estadísticamente los meses más seguros en décadas. Hemos pasado de ser un país catalogado por otras naciones como peligroso para visitar a ser anfitriones de un mundial de surf y paddleboard el mes pasado, con la participación de 27 países, entre ellos España, Chile, Sudáfrica, Australia y Nueva Zelanda, quienes fueron testigos de la riqueza en biodiversidad que posee nuestro país. Me gustaría cerrar con un llamado para que en estas negociaciones la necesidad de mayor financiamiento y medios de implementación para los países en desarrollo, particularmente vulnerables, encuentren el debido entendimiento y receptividad entre las partes que cuentan con mayores recursos y corren con mayor responsabilidad histórica por el cambio climático. Gracias.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Dan George Jensen, Minister of Climate, Energy and Utilities of Denmark. Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, imagine, if you will, the year 2050. What do you see? Maybe you see a world where droughts, cyclones, and rising water levels is the new normal. A world where the ones that had the resources to combat this sit safely behind dams, while the ones that didn't fight for their very existence. Or maybe you see a brighter world, where green energy powers a more just world, where countries have successfully adapted to climate change. Both futures are possible. The choice is ours. But it is a choice we need to make today. This year, 2019, unfortunately, is again a record year. Global CO2 emissions has reached an all-time peak for the third consecutive year. I know what I choose. I choose a greener, safer, and more just world because I believe it is our duty to coming generations. Together, I know we can make it happen. Over the last decade, we've witnessed a revolution in sustainable energy. Today, solar and wind power are cheaper than coal power in most places around the world, and private investors are lining up to fund green energy. We are witnessing a historical tipping point in favor of a green transition. Yet, despite the success stories, support is still needed for vulnerable countries to accelerate the transition and to adapt to the climate change that we already see. We need to do more to get there by 2050. We need more action and more ambition in next year's NDCs. Denmark is determined to lead the way. Just last Friday, the majority in the Danish Parliament agreed on a legally binding National Climate Act. It will ensure that climate change considerations are taken into account in every major political decision. We've set an ambitious target to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 70% by 2030. This will affect the way we regulate transportation, industry, agriculture, and energy. We hope that other countries will follow. I also pledge that Denmark will support the green transition internationally. We will do our part in solidarity to support our partners and friends all over the world. We are pushing hard for an increase of the EU's 2030 climate target to at least a 55% reduction of CO2 emissions, and for a climate-neutral EU by 2050 at the latest. We have doubled our contribution to the Green Climate Fund to assist more countries in adapting to and mitigating climate change. For 2020, our green development aid will be substantially increased, helping the least developing countries the most. Now I will speak on behalf of the Faroe Islands and Greenland. As a self-governing part of the Kingdom of Denmark, the Faroe Islands have independent climate goals. The aim is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% from land-based sources by 2030 and emissions from fishing vessels by 50% by 2050. Green energy sources will power all electricity in the Faroe Islands by 2030. As evident in the recent IPCC report on the oceans, the Arctic is experiencing climate change more severely than at lower latitudes. Greenland is a self-governing part of the Kingdom and Denmark and is located in the Arctic, and therefore adaptation and technology advancements will be key in the years to come. Greenland's public energy supply is based approximately on 70% renewable energy. In 2017, Greenland launched an ambitious sector plan for energy and water supply. In addition, the government of Greenland is proposing 2 additional hydropower projects that can ensure the public energy supply for renewable energy to 90% by 2030. In conclusion, on behalf of the Danish government, humankind rarely finds itself at such a crucial time in history, a time where it can change the course of the world for the better. We, ladies and gentlemen, are experiencing such a moment where technology can help us nurture nature instead of abusing it, where wind power can power our houses instead of knocking them down. Let us take it upon ourselves to create that world. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Shinjiro Koizuma, Minister of Environment of Japan. Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me express my greatest appreciation to the Chilean presidency for all their hard work and extend heartfelt gratitude to Spain for hosting COP25. It is a great honor to be able to share this time with you here today. I will first share my thoughts on ongoing negotiations at this COP meeting and on the Paris Agreement. The market mechanisms in Article 6 of the Paris Agreement are instruments to accelerate global emissions reductions. Japan promotes a joint crediting mechanism, or JCM, as a pioneering initiative under Article 6. Under the JCM, more than 160 projects have been implemented. Just to give you one example, we support a shift from coal to solar in Mongolia, reducing carbon emissions while contributing to SDGs, including improvement of health. The success of COP25 rests on the rules for implementing Article 6, our homework from last year. We need to create robust rules to ensure environmental integrity by avoiding double counting so that the Paris Agreement kicks off to a good start. I am one of the youngest ministers in the world and the oldest of the millennial generation. I can empathize with the next generation's passion for a sustainable world. Also, I am well aware of their anger with the older generation for their inaction. I am going to be a father next year. I have a duty to secure the future beyond 2050, which is my future, and indeed, the future of my child and all children. At the Climate Action Summit in New York, I received a proposal sent from Japanese students and made a decision to join the Clean Air Initiative. I wanted the next generation to know that their voices are being heard by political leaders. What we need now is inclusive action, mobilizing all generations. Of course, I am aware of global criticism, including on our coal-relating policies. Last week, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for stopping our addiction to coal. I took this as a message to Japan. I am afraid I cannot share new development on our coal policy today, but let me tell you, a growing number of people in Japan, including myself, believe further climate action must be taken. While taking these criticisms seriously, I would like to stress Japan is taking concrete actions towards decarbonization and delivering the results. We have reduced the greenhouse gases emission for 5 years in a row. There are only 2 countries who achieved it, Japan and the UK, among the G7 countries. Japan joined the Carbon Neutrality Coalition this September. These actions and results are overshadowed by the criticism on our coal policy. I came to Madrid to change that perception. Japan may be perceived not fully committed. That's not true. We are fully committed, and Japan will deliver. This year, Japan suffered devastating damage from typhoons. Having been affected very badly, Nagano Prefecture became the first prefecture to declare a climate emergency and express their determination to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. This is truly symbolic as an awakening of non-state actors like local governments. When I was appointed as Environment Minister a few months ago, there were just 4 local governments with a total population of 20 million, which announced their aims for net zero carbon by 2050. I then made a successful call nationwide and now 28 localities, including Tokyo, Kyoto, and Yokohama, aim to be net zero by 2050. They have 45 million people in total, generating a GDP of $2 trillion US. Population-wise, this figure is bigger than that of the state of California, and is not far off the population of Spain at 47 million. Ambitious actions by these local governments will drive the national government to achieve net zero sooner within this century. For zero carbon economy, we need to mobilize private capital. As Bank of England Governor Mark Carney stated at the TCFD summit held in Tokyo this year, Japan is a leader in the field of TCFD. 212 Japanese companies and institutions support TCFD recommendations, the largest number in the world. Proper disclosure of climate-related information attracts investment and contributes to further economic growth. As a leading donor to the Green Climate Fund, Japan is making a contribution of $3 billion US. We will strongly support the GCF as a way of assisting developing countries to take action, including on adaptation. Ladies and gentlemen, next year, 2020, is the year to fully deliver on the Paris Agreement. We must fulfill our duty, representing all generations, to produce a successful outcome of this COP. Let's get our homework done. Thank you very much. Arigato. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Quevedas Romano, Minister of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change of Mauritius. Your Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Madame la Présidente, permettez-moi de féliciter Son Excellence, Madame Carolina Schmidt, la ministre de l'Environnement du Chili, pour son élection à la présidence de la COP25. Je saisis cette occasion également pour exprimer nos sincères remerciements au Royaume de l'Espagne pour avoir accueilli cet illustre événement dans cette ville magnifique et historique qu'est Madrid. La République de Maurice s'associe aux déclarations faites par le représentant de l'État de la Palestine au nom du groupe des 77 et de la Chine, le représentant de l'Égypte au nom du groupe Afrique et par le représentant de Belize au nom de l'Alliance des petits États insulaires. Madame la Présidente, en 2015, nous avons adopté l'accord de Paris avec beaucoup d'espoir pour nos peuples. Nous étions convaincus qu'un effort collectif permettrait de réduire les émissions mondiales de gaz à effet de serre afin de sauver notre planète des menaces grandissantes du changement climatique. Malgré cette étape historique, les observations scientifiques ont démontré que nous sommes déjà sur la trajectoire d'une augmentation de la température mondiale de 3 degrés Celsius, avec des conséquences désastreuses pour des millions de personnes vulnérables, notamment ceux des petits États insulaires et le continent africain dans son ensemble. Ces derniers mois, nous avons été témoins des conditions climatiques extrêmes dans les 4 coins de la planète. Les terribles ravages provoqués par l'ouragan de catégorie 5 d'Orient dans le petit État insulaire des Bahamas resteront à jamais dans nos mémoires. Cela nous rappelle que nous sommes déjà entrés dans une ère où des catastrophes de catégorie 5 n'est plus une exception, mais un danger réel. À quoi il faut s'attendre n'importe quand et dans n'importe quel coin du monde. Les impacts du changement climatique sur nos populations gagnent en gravité d'année en année. Nous vivons en ce moment une période charnière de notre histoire, de notre avenir collectif sur la planète Terre. En bref, nous sommes à la croisée des chemins. Nous risquons de compromettre les promesses de l'accord de Paris si nous n'agissons pas rapidement et efficacement. En tant que décideurs, nous avons l'opportunité de marquer l'histoire en tant que garant de la survie de l'humanité face aux menaces du changement climatique. Si nous abdiquons à notre devoir, la génération à venir ne nous pardonnera pas pour avoir failli à nos responsabilités. Nous sommes à la croisée des chemins Les décisions d'aujourd'hui détermineront l'avenir de la planète et la pérennité de la civilisation. La loi de la nature ne nous donne aucun moratoire. En tant que peuple responsable, nous devons en prendre conscience. Tout développement doit être au service du bien-être et du bonheur des gens. Madame la Présidente, en ce qui concerne l'île Maurice, nous sommes régulièrement cités parmi les pays les plus vulnérables. D'ailleurs, nous sommes classés parmi les pays les plus exposés aux risques de catastrophes. Nous subissons chaque année des événements climatiques extrêmes, tels que les crues soudaines qui ont de graves répercussions sur nos concitoyens. Nous vivons dans l'angoisse de la menace imminente d'un cyclone de catégorie 5 qui pourrait frapper notre île à tout moment en période estivale. Nous avons observé également une érosion accélérée des plages de près de 20 mètres au cours de la dernière décennie, notamment à cause de l'élévation du niveau de la mer de l'ordre de 5,6 mm par an. Malgré ces difficultés, je veux croire que nous pouvons encore faire bouger les choses. Pour réussir, nous devons oser être plus proactifs avec le support de la communauté internationale. Nous devons maintenir l'intensification de nos efforts visant à atteindre des émissions globales neutres d'ici 2050. Pour ce faire, il nous faut atteindre l'objectif de mobiliser 100 milliards de dollars par année par les pays développés et mettre en place une structure appropriée de soutien financier prévisible et accessible pour venir en aide aux pays en voie de développement. L'île Maurice s'est quant à elle lancée dans un certain nombre d'initiatives visant à mettre en œuvre ses contributions déterminées au niveau national. Nous avons entamé la préparation de notre plan national d'adaptation qui inclura des secteurs tels que l'infrastructure, la zone côtière, l'agriculture et la pêche. Madame la Présidente, rapidement, permettez-moi ici de citer quelques-unes des mesures d'adaptation telles que la mise en place d'un centre national pour la gestion des risques liés aux désastres naturels et changements climatiques, réhabilitation d'une dizaine de plages affectées par l'érosion accélérée, la construction des drains couvrant plusieurs régions de l'île Maurice, puis une meilleure canalisation des eaux pluviales, l'amélioration de notre système météorologique en se dotant d'un radar Doppler qui est censé produire des données précises et plus fiables en temps réel. Et quant aux mesures d'atténuation, il y a la mise sur pied d'une agence pour la promotion des énergies renouvelables, l'implantation d'une dizaine de fermes photovoltaïques, l'introduction du métro léger comme moyen de transport commun afin de réduire l'émission de gaz à effet de serre et dans le même souffle pallier aux problèmes de congestion routière et l'élaboration d'une stratégie pour réduire nos émissions. Pour conclure, Madame la Présidente, nous sommes aussi en train de revoir les objectifs de notre contribution déterminée au niveau national avec l'assistance du gouvernement français. Je profite de cette opportunité pour remercier nos partenaires bilatéraux tels que l'Agence française de développement, l'Union européenne, les gouvernements indiens et japonais pour leur soutien indéfectible de notre démarche de transition écologique. Madame la Présidente, je pense que nous devons agir rapidement et efficacement. Nous devons mettre de côté nos différences au nom du bien commun, tant au niveau national et mondial. Nous connaissons nos objectifs et il nous faut donner les moyens d'y parvenir. Maintenant, il est grand temps d'aller au-delà des mots, voir des actions concrètes et probantes. Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Thank you, Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Prince Abdulaziz bin Salam Al Saud, Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ضيوف الكرام، أود في البداية أن أشكر مملكة إسبانيا الصديقة لما لقيناه من حسن استقبال ومن كرم استضافة لهذا المؤتمر، والذي لم يكن ينعقد لولا شجاعة هذه الحكومة وهذا الشعب الذي يقوم دائما باستضافة كل هذه المناسبات بكل اقتدار. كما أقدر لجمهورية تشيلي رئاستها هذا المؤتمر باقتدار وفعالية. أيها الحضور الكرام، أود في مستهل كلمتي أن أسلط الضوء على الدور الريادي الذي نقوم به في المملكة العربية السعودية للتعامل مع تحديات التغير المناخي ولإنجاز إسهاماتنا المقررة وطنيا في مجال خفض الانبعاثات، بدءا بتنفيذ خططنا لتحويل إنتاج الكهرباء من الوقود السائل إلى الغاز، وإنتاج حصة أكبر من الكهرباء من مصادر الطاقة المتجددة والطاقة النووية خلال الأعوام العشر القادمة. سنصبح بإذن الله مركزا عالميا لاستغلال الطاقة المتجددة، كما أننا نعمل على تعزيز كفاءة استخدام الطاقة. فخلال الفترة ما بين 2012 و 2018 تمكنا من خفض كثافة استهلاك الطاقة بنسبة 8%، إضافة إلى مساهمات برنامج إصلاح أسعار الطاقة في تحفيز المستهلكين على الترشيد في استهلاكهم. وقد واصلت المملكة جهودها على مدى 4 عقود من الاستثمار في شبكة الغاز الرئيسية والحد من الحرق التقليدي للغاز المصاحب، وتعزيز كفاءة الطاقة وتطبيق أفضل الممارسات الصناعية البترولية لإدارة المكامن، ما جعل المملكة ذات أقل معدل لكثافة انبعاثات الكربون خلال مراحل التنقيب عن الخام وإنتاجه مقارنة بأي دولة أخرى منتجة للبترول، وبما يصل إلى نصف المعدل المتوسط في الصناعة على مستوى العالم تقريباً، وهو ما وردت الإشارة إليه حديثاً في بحث علمي لجامعة ستانفورد نشرته مجلة ساينس. كما أعلنت شركة أرامكو السعودية أن كثافة انبعاثات الكربون الناجمة عن أعمال التنقيب والإنتاج لديها بلغت 10.2 كيلو جرام من مكافئ ثاني أكسيد الكربون لكل برميل مكافئ نفطي، وهي تعد من بين أقل الشركات النفطية الكبرى على مستوى العالم في الانبعاثات الكربونية. ونتيجة لهذه الجهود المجتمعة، فقد أشارت أحدث بيانات الوكالة الدولية للطاقة إلى أن انبعاثات غاز ثاني أكسيد الكربون المكافئ في المملكة انخفضت نسبته بحوالي 2.7% في عام 2012، مما يضع المملكة في المركز الرابع بين دول العالم بين دول المجموعة العشرين فيما يتعلق بخفض انبعاثات الغازات المسببة للاحتباس الحراري لعام 2018. كما أن المملكة تبنت مفهوم الاقتصاد الدائري الكربوني لمواصلة إنجازاتها المقررة وطنياً، وتتولى المملكة حالياً رئاسة مجموعة العشرين التي ستكون فرصة لتشجيع شركائنا في المجموعة على تبني هذا المفهوم لتسريع استعادة توازن دورة الانبعاثات الناتجة عن جميع القطاعات ومن جميع أنواع الغازات المسببة للاحتباس الحراري عن طريق خفض هذه الانبعاثات وإعادة استخدامها وإعادة تدويرها وإزالتها. ويمكن تحقيق ذلك من خلال نشر استخدام التقنيات المبتكرة وتطبيق الحلول التي تركز في أساسها على الطبيعة. ويمكننا القول بكل ثقة أن الابتكار والتقنية والبحث والتطوير تمثل معا وسائل التمكين الرئيسية في مجال التعامل مع تحديات التغير المناخي. أيها الحضور الكرام، لا بد لي أن أؤكد مجددا دعم المملكة لاتفاقية باريس بشأن تغيير المناخ، واعتقادنا بأن مباحثاتنا هنا ستكون مهمة جدا لتذليل العقبات أمام تطبيق ما تم الاتفاق عليه. وتعد اتفاقية باريس تتويجا للمناقشات والمفاوضات الصريحة والبناءة التي جرت بين الدول الأطراف، وركزت على الانبعاثات وأن التعامل مع جميع القطاعات ذات العلاقة بالتساوي مع الأخذ في الاعتبار الظروف الخاصة لكل دولة. وفي تعاملنا مع التحديات التي نواجهها اليوم علينا ألا ننظر إلى الكربون على أنه المشكلة، لأن هذه النظرة ستحول بيننا وبين الاستفادة منه كمادة خام لإنتاج سلع أخرى ذات قيمة مضافة، وكذلك تعيق الجهود لتلبية احتياجات العالم من الطاقة بطريقة مستدامة وموثوقة وفعالة من حيث التكلفة. كما أحب أن أؤكد أن المملكة تسعى دائما بأن تكون جزءا فاعلا لأي مجهود دولي يساهم في وضع الحلول لهذا التحديث، أي أننا سنكون فاعلين أسوة بمن يريدون أن يكونوا فاعلين أيضا، ولكن بتوازن مقبول لدى الجميع. أشكر لكم حسن استماعكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Ariel Oviedo, Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development of Paraguay. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Muy buenos días. Señora Presidenta de la COP25 y Ministra del Ambiente de la República de Chile, doña Carolina Schmidt, a quien quiero hacerle llegar el agradecimiento y el reconocimiento por parte del pueblo paraguayo y del Presidente de la República, don Mario Abdo, a través de su persona al gobierno chileno por la colaboración que recibimos en los momentos de desgracia del incendio forestal que ocurrió en nuestro país, en donde perdimos 360.000 hectáreas de bosque nativo, que hubieran sido más sin su ayuda. Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta, y al pueblo chileno. Excelencias, distinguidos delegados, señoras y señores, en representación de la República del Paraguay, traigo los saludos del excelentísimo señor Presidente de la República, don Mario Abdo, y hago extensivo su agradecimiento al Gobierno de Chile en la persona de la Ministra de Medio Ambiente, doña Carolina Schmidt, por la brillante organización, y al Gobierno español por su solidaridad para llevar adelante la COP25 y por el cordial recibimiento a nuestra delegación. El Paraguay es una nación bilingüe y pluricultural que se encuentra en pleno proceso de desarrollo y cuyo pilar es el crecimiento económico basado en el respeto a la naturaleza y en los derechos humanos, elementos fundamentales para alcanzar el desarrollo sostenible. En esa línea ha reglamentado el mecanismo de consulta libre, previa e informada. Acogemos con beneplácito el informe especial del IPCC titulado El cambio climático y la tierra, que manifiesta, si bien una mejor gestión de la tierra puede contribuir a hacer frente al cambio climático, no es la solución. El Paraguay solo participa y aporta el 0,13% de las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero a nivel mundial, pero se ve afectado de manera exponencial y desproporcional por los efectos del cambio climático ocasionado por las emisiones globales de origen externo, que han producido que la temperatura media de mi país aumente en 1 grado desde 1938. En menos de un año hemos sufrido inundaciones, incendios y sequías que han afectado al corazón de la economía paraguaya, que es la agricultura y la ganadería. El Paraguay integra junto con Argentina, Bolivia, Brasil y Uruguay la cuenca del Plata, drenada por el río de la Plata y sus afluentes, que alberga una población de más de 110 millones de personas susceptibles a los impactos del cambio climático. El Paraguay es un país rico en recursos naturales, en los que basa su desarrollo, produce energía limpia y certifica bosques nativos que buscan incentivar su conservación. Sin embargo, estamos siendo afectados significativamente por los efectos adversos del cambio climático, generando daños y pérdidas de carácter social, económico y ambiental, muchas veces irreversibles, perjudicando a las poblaciones vulnerables como las comunidades indígenas y las mujeres. Señora Presidenta, el financiamiento público interno de los países en proceso de desarrollo es insuficiente para cumplir con las contribuciones nacionales determinadas y se requiere el financiamiento de los países más desarrollados, de quienes esperamos cumplan con su compromiso en el 2020 de movilización de recursos para la acción climática, también del sector privado, de los organismos internacionales, así como de la eficiente implementación de mercados de carbono en los que se puedan realizar transacciones a un precio justo y razonable. La adaptación es una prioridad. Es por ello que destinamos esfuerzos en desarrollar el Plan Nacional de Adaptación, el Plan Sectorial para la Gestión de Riesgos y Adaptación al Cambio Climático en el sector agrícola y el Plan Nacional de Implementación del Marco de Sendai. El gran reto es pasar del plan a la acción, aliados al sector privado, la academia y a la sociedad civil. Para el 2020 prevemos realizar la actualización de las NDCs y el plan de implementación. No obstante, como primera iniciativa concreta para alcanzar las metas de reducción comprometidas, este año concluimos y aprobamos la Estrategia Nacional de Bosques para el Crecimiento Sostenible, cuyo objetivo es reducir las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero provenientes del cambio de uso de la tierra. En nuestro segundo informe bienal de actualización se presenta una reducción de 26,7 millones de toneladas de CO2, alcanzadas mediante una disminución en la deforestación de los periodos 2015 a 2017, que permitió al país recibir recursos del Fondo Verde para el Clima que serán invertidos en la implementación de la Estrategia Nacional de Bosques para el Crecimiento Sostenible y en la capitalización e instrumentalización del Fondo del Cambio Climático creado por la Ley Nacional de Cambio Climático del 2017. Asumamos la responsabilidad colectiva a tomar acciones inmediatas, efectivas y transformadoras, con una estrategia baja en carbono, que se enfoque en un aumento del uso de energías renovables, hábitos de consumo responsables y medidas eficientes que nos permitirán transitar hacia el desarrollo sostenible y resiliente al cambio climático. Escuchemos las voces de los pueblos originarios, de los niños, de los jóvenes, de las mujeres que reclaman acciones efectivas ante este flagelo que causa estragos en el planeta. La madre naturaleza necesita hoy de sus buenos hijos para salvar nuestro planeta y a todas las especies que habitan en él. Tupañan de Yara Tapendero Basá, Ahuillé, PM Guarán. Dios le bendiga. Muchas gracias a ustedes.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Fadi Jarsati, Minister of Environment of Lebanon. Your Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning. Excellencies, Madam President, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Lebanon is honored to speak here at COP25, the COP where we move from negotiations to implementation. We first want to thank the government of Spain for generously hosting, and we wish the government of Chile all the success in the conclusions of this COP. This year has indeed been full of momentum for everyone to ambitiously do more and reflect in their NDCs, considering the most recent scientific findings in the IPCC 1.5 degrees report. This COP is therefore essential in keeping that momentum alive and into 2020 through, 1, upholding the collective energy coming out of the UN Climate Summit initiatives and integrating them into the process, concluding negotiations in this COP to have a workable system for Article 6, while withholding environmental integrity and avoiding double counting, among others, and achieve progress on the remaining transparency items such as common reporting tables, BTR outline and training program for technical experts in order to have them successfully conclude at COP26. In its 2015 NDC, Lebanon has set ambitious targets in many sectors to reduce national GHG till 2030 and increase the resilience of people, cities, ecosystems, and the economy. Lebanon plans to enhance its NDC in 2020 through higher ambition, stronger resilience, integrating gender considerations, and synchronized climate change action with the achievement of the SDGs. On finance, and in order to enhance local ambition and to empower all actors, Lebanon plans to scale up finance through the establishment of the Lebanon Green Investment Facility, an investment facility which would provide accessible and affordable financial instruments to accelerate the low-emission and resilient transition. Lebanon calls to all its international partners to engage positively with this initiative to secure a low-carbon and climate-resilient growth. Lebanon is a climate-vulnerable country, and its identity will be altered by the different climatic impacts, such as reduced precipitation and snow cover, droughts, and increase in diseases. Therefore, the protection of livelihoods, ecosystems, and the economy depends on swift adaptation actions. Lebanon is updating its adaptation plan in its 2020 NDC and will develop its NAP in the short term, piloting the resilience of cities. Most of Lebanon's emissions stem from the energy sector, which is the reason why the energy transition is a top priority. The NDC currently includes a renewable energy target which will be increased to 30% by 2030, therefore increasing the NDC's ambition. To that end, renewable energy projects are in the pipeline for execution. Moreover, Lebanon plans to increase energy efficiency from both the supply and demand side through technology shifts and behavioral change. Lebanon's forest cover and biodiversity are top priority, which is why the plan is to plant more than 20 million trees till 2030 to increase removals and preserve habitats. Furthermore, Lebanon's agriculture sector is planned to leapfrog to further contribute to the GDP while being sustainable through conservation agriculture, organic farming, and improved water and energy efficiency. These measures will concretely be part of Lebanon's NDC update and in line with Lebanon's land degradation neutrality pledge by 2030. It is therefore clear that nature-based solutions will be key in the coming decades. Most of the Lebanese population live in cities, which makes it primary target for change. Measures such as public transit, greening the fleet, and integrated solid waste management are priority actions to reduce emissions and improve productivity and health, and are part of the city level and local actions. Furthermore, a green building code for new buildings and a retrofitting code for old buildings are in the works to complete the sustainability layer of Lebanese cities, including maps in the cooling sector, thus optimizing efforts undertaken within the UNFCCC and the Montreal Protocol. Updating and achieving the NDC will put Lebanon on a path towards sustainable development to help communities grow with a reduced impact on the environment. To achieve this, Lebanon is adopting a whole-of-government, whole-of-society approach, involving all stakeholders to enable the shift towards a low-emission and resilient future. Finally, Lebanon is preparing itself to implement the Katowice climate package in order to be ready for the enhanced transparency framework. It is time to act, and I wish you all the success for COP25 and hope to see our common Paris Agreement goal achieved through collective action. Ambition is contagious. Let's spread it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Wallace Keith Cosgrove, Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate Change of Seychelles. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. We are honored to be present here today and join those who have already spoken before us to thank the Kingdom of Spain, the city of Madrid, for the warm hospitality that has been accorded to us since our arrival and for me to address our generation's most urgent crisis. Like the many other small island developing states, the Republic of Seychelles views climate change as an emergency, challenging all aspects of its chances for future survival and undermines Seychelles' efforts to fully achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. It underscores the pressing need to act and implement the Paris Agreement in earnest. We cannot afford to let the world lose the sense of urgency for climate action that preceded the Paris Conference. The stakes are higher than ever, and the recent 2 IPCC reports alluded to it. However, we are deeply concerned by the lack of progress made on important issues during this COP, especially where the delays are attributed to procedures rather than substance. Progress on climate action is urgently required, as highlighted by the WMO recently. There is no time for delay or inaction. We must utilize the time we have left at this COP to finalize these issues with the high level of political support. Madam President, Article 6 has been the focus of the deliberations at this COP, and it still have been unable to solve the issues of the greatest importance, protecting environmental integrity. Therefore, the negotiations on markets mechanisms must deliver robust rules and regulations that protect environmental integrity of the Paris Agreement, prevent double counting, promote an overall mitigation and global emissions, and provide an avenue for more reliable resources to be used for rapid adaptation. Furthermore, loss and damage is not something that is going to happen in the future. It is happening right now, especially to the most vulnerable people and communities in the small island developing states like Seychelles. Therefore, we continue to be very concerned by what appears to be deliberate attempts to isolate loss and damage in the negotiations. Loss and damage is undeniably part of our reality today, and we support the cry for the establishment of a new financing window within the Green Climate Fund for swift access. Madam President, securing scaled-up new and additional means of implementation for us are critical to contributing to meeting our commitments and raising our ambition under the UNFCCC and its Paris Agreement to our revised and upscale NDCs. So we are calling on all developed parties to honor their commitments to provide developing countries with $100 billion per year in climate financing by 2020, as pledged. There are important linkages between climate change and the oceans, both in terms of the potential role of the ocean in providing solutions to climate change and the climate impacts on oceans. Therefore, there are needs to better integrate, to be better integration of oceans into the issues of UNFCCC and climate issues into ocean processes beyond the UNFCCC. The world cannot succeed in addressing climate change without ambitious ocean climate action. Seychelles is already ready to step up, demonstrate leadership, and encourage others to join in shifting onto a course that is more sustainable and responds to the needs of the SIDS. Seychelles is not prepared to accept an outcome that represents little more than business as usual. This is not acceptable. The COP25 outcome must respond to the legitimate expectation of the citizens of my country and who are demanding accelerated action on this climate emergency. Therefore, Seychelles is committed to work with the Chilean presidency to deliver an ambitious and successful outcome at this COP. The time to act decisively, meaningfully, is rapidly running out. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Myung Rae Cho, Minister of Environment of the Republic of Korea. Excellency, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Last year in Poland, we finally saw the adoption of the Katowice climate package. It was just 4 years after the Paris Agreement, the great promise made to stop catastrophic climate disaster. This package, robust implementation guidance, gives us one clear message that we must now act. And we must act now, meaning the next 10 years should be a decade of bold action and a decade of the great transformation. It requires the most extensive cross-cutting change in the way we produce and consume. In fact, this transformative change has been signaled strongly by world leaders in New York last September. President Moon Jae-in joined them in making pledges of Korea's commitment toward low-carbon future. He also promised to double the nation's contribution to Green Climate Fund to accelerate the pace of global climate action. Excellencies, moving towards a low-carbon economy is a challenging task. It is challenging because we have to depart from our old habits. In this low-carbon path we are about to take, high-carbon options do not simply make sense. To discourage business as usual, we need a right system that puts reasonable price tag on carbon. The price of traded carbon in Korea has reached more than $30, the highest level among all countries concerned. Although such high carbon price poses challenge across sectors, Korea will submit new NDC reflecting its highest possible ambition by next year to faithfully implement Paris Agreement. We have also ambitiously launched an inclusive process to develop a 2050 long-term low-emission development strategy. Diverse stakeholders, all levels, are participating to make their voices heard. Excellencies, I believe the most critical deliverable from COP25, among others, is the adoption of guidance for Article 6. For Korea, it is crucial to have this guidance completed because carbon market is an important enabler for us to boost our climate ambition. I do hope that parties will put aside their differences and find solutions for carbon market that retain environmental integrity. Next year, the year 2020, set an important milestone because all parties are asked to raise their ambitions and submit new NDCs. In June next year, Korea will host Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030, or People's Summit, with the aim of promoting public-private partnerships at scale, which are essential in implementing both Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals. The People's emphasizes innovative partnerships to advance solutions that will help us meet humanity's greatest challenges. The benefit of this initiative could be endless: more jobs, equity, and social justice, green innovations, most importantly, inclusive growth that leaves no one behind. Indeed, the values of inclusive growth should thrive in all countries' low-carbon trajectory. Excellencies, Korea remains strongly committed to implementation of Paris Agreement and calls on all parties to work together to achieve our shared goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Carole Reichberg, Minister of Environment, Climate and Sustainable Development of Luxembourg. Madame, you have the floor.
Merci. Merci, Madame la Présidente, Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs. Un grand merci à la République du Chili et au Royaume de l'Espagne pour votre hospitalité et vos efforts conjoints qui contribueront à un succès de cette COP25. Le succès de cette conférence sera mesuré par deux éléments. Tout d'abord, la finalisation du restant des règles d'application de l'accord de Paris, dont celle de l'article 6, sans que l'intégrité environnementale et la transparence de l'accord ne soient remises en question. Puis ensuite, un engagement clair vers plus d'ambition et plus de solidarité. Bien entendu, toutes les décisions que nous adopterons d'ici à la fin de la semaine devront également refléter la promotion de l'égalité des genres et le respect des droits de l'homme. Madame la Présidente, le secrétaire général des Nations Unies l'avait si bien exposé dans son discours. L'humanité se trouve confrontée à un choix. Ou bien nous allons collectivement réduire nos émissions de gaz à effet de serre de manière à atteindre la neutralité climatique au plus tard 2050, ou bien nous allons, en toute connaissance de cause, abandonner tout espoir de pouvoir contenir la crise climatique. Eh bien, le Luxembourg a fait son choix. Tout récemment, mon gouvernement s'est doté d'objectifs très ambitieux en matière de réduction d'émissions. Nous avons arrêté des objectifs dans une loi climat afin d'en assurer la pérennité et le respect. Le Luxembourg vise le net zéro des émissions de gaz à effet de serre au plus tard en 2050. À l'horizon 2030, nous réduirons nos émissions de 55% par rapport à 2005. Ces objectifs anticipent sur la révision du indice de l'Union européenne que cette dernière fera en 2020. Cette revue à la hausse de nos objectifs traduit la volonté politique, traduit la volonté de la société civile, notamment des jeunes, et traduit la volonté aussi des entreprises. Le respect de ces objectifs requiert, bien évidemment, des efforts collectifs considérables, et ceci dans tous les secteurs. À cette fin, mon gouvernement vient d'arrêter un plan climat qui contient des mesures nécessaires pour atteindre ces objectifs. Décarboniser le transport, la gratuité des transports en commun, l'efficacité énergétique, l'abandon progressif des énergies fossiles sont des éléments clés de ce plan, tout comme l'économie circulaire. Nous faisons un lien entre la protection du climat et la protection de la biodiversité des écosystèmes et tout particulièrement de nos forêts. Le Luxembourg rejoindra les pays qui instaurent un prix CO2 pour accélérer la transition qui, de toute évidence, doit être une transition équitable. C'est pourquoi notre plan climat sera assorti de mesures de solidarité nécessaires. En parallèle, nous renforçons notre engagement pour davantage de solidarité envers ceux qui sont le plus exposés par les conséquences de la crise climatique. Le Luxembourg doublera son apport de financement international au climat et le Luxembourg doublera sa contribution au Fonds vert pour le climat. Madame la Présidente, l'urgence climatique est claire, la science est claire. Les jeunes dans les rues nous appellent à agir. C'est notre génération qui doit réaliser le passage d'un monde basé sur les énergies fossiles vers un monde à zéro net émission. Nous n'avons pas de temps à perdre, passons donc à l'action. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Sir Renbat Namsari, Minister of Environment and Tourism of Mongolia. Excellency, you have the floor. That's right.
Madam President, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Government of Mongolia, I would like to express great appreciation to the governments of Chile and Spain for organizing and hosting COP25, despite the unseen situation and the implausible short period of time. I don't need to reiterate that climate change is not just a regular challenge that the world is facing. Ever increasing the impact of natural disasters in respect of frequency and magnitude around the world are apparent facts that the modern-day climate change is an urgency issue. The government of Mongolia put much effort this year to develop its NDC by raising its previous target by 8.7%, thus committing to reduce our national greenhouse gas emission by 20.7% compared to the business-as-usual scenario by 2030. This undertaking can be further enhanced, taking into account the possible sink effect attributed to the land use change and forestry sector, as well as accelerated cooperation among countries as collective effort of the international community based on improvement and newly introduced incentive mechanism to achieve the Paris Agreement goal. Concurrently, the government of Mongolia has developed a long-term national development strategy up to 2050, incorporating all key spheres of social and economic structure. The identified NDC targets fully align with those of long-term strategy to foresee if Mongolia would succeed to reach carbon neutrality by the mid of the century. Madam President, nowadays almost all measures regardless related to mitigation or adaptation are exceeding capacity of individual countries, especially the most vulnerable developing countries, to global warming. Mongolia is actively engaging with the existing international cooperation activities on climate change, both multilateral and bilateral, constructively collaborating with the GCF, Adaptation Fund, GEF, and some other international financial institutions such as ADB, and from the bilateral cooperation with countries like Germany, Japan, and others. We are having tangible outcomes in addressing certain critical climate mitigation and adaptation issues. In this regard, I would like to emphasize that some key article of Paris Agreement, as Article 6 on market and non-market mechanisms, should be operationalized as soon as possible to engage all possible players beyond government organizations and public institutions. In the area of policy support partnership, Mongolia is actively collaborating with the NDC partnership, recently joined Climate Ambitious Alliance initiated by COP25 to presidency. But last not least, for the most developing countries in adaptation issues is crucial, and Mongolia is currently developing its national adaptation plan in cooperation with UNEP and under the GCF support. With the frame of the elaboration of the adaptation measures, potential socio-economic and environmental co-benefits are considered as high priority. The cost-effective implication of the nature-based situation options are preferably supported. I would like to appeal to all parties to decisively take concrete action with more ambitious climate target to keep our planet for generations to come and to ensure the safety of our cohabitants. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Eric Wallace, Minister of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy of the Netherlands. Your Excellency, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the President of this conference and our hosts from Chile and Spain, respectively, for organizing this event. This COP is all about mechanisms and systems, and the next COP should be about ambitions. But let's not forget that in the end, it's not about mechanisms, systems, or ambitions, it's about actions and results. And nothing prohibits us to start with climate actions in our own countries now. No need to wait for COP results. This is no regret. In the Netherlands, we've tried that. We've reached a national climate agreement with 150 stakeholders across all sectors of our society and our economy, including unions, including industry. And this approach has led to a broad agreement in our country, with concrete measures aiming a reduction in 2030 of greenhouse gases by half compared to 1990. And the leading principle of this transition is that we ensure that everything we do is feasible and affordable for people, for households, and for businesses. And we have a national climate law to ensure that periodically we review where we are and we adjust what we do. And in this respect, our Parliament has passed a bill yesterday to phase out coal in the coming years. And we all know with coal we will fail. For me, this whole process with these 150 stakeholders, to be honest, took 2 years of my life, and I wish you good faith, and in the end, this is a way to do it. In doing this, we learned 3 lessons. First, you need pricing. Without a pricing mechanism, it is becoming extremely hard. Secondly, do not exclude technical measures. Do not exclude carbon capture and storage. Do not exclude biomass. Do not exclude nuclear, because if you exclude technical measures, it will be extremely hard. And thirdly, use this collaborative approach. Go sector by sector. Stakeholders have to deliver the reduction. Governments have to create the right conditions and coordinate. Finally, what is my absolute must-have from this COP? If we want real emission reduction, we should be absolutely firm on the environmental integrity of the system. And without proper emissions accounting, all quantified ambitions will be meaningless. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Milquiades Abdiel Concepcion, Minister of Environment of Panama. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Buenos días. Gracias a la Presidencia de Chile por la organización y su liderazgo en esta conferencia y al Gobierno de España por aceptar el reto de acoger en tan corto plazo su realización. Nuestra nación Panamá se ha consolidado entre las de mayor crecimiento económico en América Latina y el Caribe, por su condición como centro logístico y financiero regional, que se robustece con políticas públicas de transparencia y acceso a la información. Somos un país que cuenta con ecosistemas tropicales de alta biodiversidad. Más del 40% de la superficie terrestre y marina se encuentra protegida y es un importante sumidero de carbono que le permite al país estabilizar sus emisiones y disminuir la vulnerabilidad de sectores productivos y poblaciones. Como todos los países de América Latina y el Caribe, Panamá es extremadamente vulnerable. Nos encontramos entre los 15 países más expuestos a riesgos múltiples, acentuados por el cambio climático, y ha sido catalogado por su ubicación como punto crítico de desastres naturales. El Canal de Panamá es una de las principales rutas comerciales del mundo que brinda servicio al 6% de la economía marítima. Como evidencia al cambio climático, entre el 2013 y 2017, los aportes de los caudales de la cuenca del canal presentaron un déficit hídrico de 20% con respecto al promedio histórico. En contraste, en 2018 enfrentó una difícil situación donde se vio forzado a abrir las compuertas por exceso de precipitación en sus reservorios y pocos meses después, durante la época seca y atenuado fenómeno del Niño, tuvo que imponer restricciones de buques debido al bajo nivel de calado, representando una pérdida de $40 millones. A pesar de que somos un contribuyente menor a las emisiones globales, ampliamos nuestras metas frente al Acuerdo de París. Fortalecemos nuestra agenda climática con política de Estado orientada a la satisfacción de las necesidades básicas de la población, como la movilidad urbana sostenible y acceso a energías limpias. Descarbonizar el transporte terrestre representa una acción efectiva para reducir las emisiones. Además, mejora la calidad de vida de más del 60% de los panameños en el área metropolitana. De igual forma, garantizar el acceso a una energía fiable y sostenible a toda la población es una deuda del Estado. Panamá apuesta por las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza como parte fundamental de la acción por el clima, el resguardo de los ecosistemas y el bienestar de las personas más vulnerables. Hemos integrado entre estas metas la preservación y restauración de bosques, tierras y suelos, la protección de la biodiversidad y corredores ecológicos, la agricultura compatible con el clima y los sistemas alimentarios y la conservación y restauración de los ecosistemas marino-costeros y la gestión sostenible de los océanos. Destacamos la oportunidad única que supone la COP25 para avanzar sobre áreas clave como la protección de los océanos, al reconocer su importancia como sustento de nuestras comunidades costeras, regulador del clima y su capacidad natural para almacenar carbono y, por ende, mitigar el cambio climático. Para alcanzar un verdadero desarrollo sostenible, la integración de los ODS, el Acuerdo de París y el Marco de Sendai en los procesos de planificación nacional es de vital importancia. En este contexto, reconocemos la importancia de la cooperación y diálogo internacional en respecto de los procesos nacionales. Las experiencias de cooperación sur-sur, con el apoyo del financiamiento internacional, tienen un papel catalizador de acciones para el desarrollo de la resiliencia y la capacidad adaptiva en toda la región. Hacemos un llamado para que se reafirme e implemente el compromiso de los países desarrollados en movilizar recursos financieros, tecnológicos y de conocimiento que garantice que los países en desarrollo cumplan con sus obligaciones ante la Convención. Coincidimos con América Latina y el Caribe en la necesidad de que el Fondo Verde para el Clima garantice un acceso a los recursos para la región, por lo que es esencial que se fortalezca su presencia en la región latinoamericana. El Estado panameño reconoce que no se puede enfrentar el cambio climático sin garantizar el respeto y goce de los derechos humanos, particularmente de aquellos grupos en situación de vulnerabilidad, como los pueblos indígenas, comunidades campesinas, mujeres, personas con discapacidad, niños, entre otros. Por ello, asevera su compromiso con el Acuerdo de Escazú. Estimados líderes políticos, esta lucha no se puede perder. Las generaciones actuales y futuras nos hacen un llamado alto y claro. Los líderes tenemos el deber de emprender mayores, mejores y contundentes acciones para atender la crisis climática. La voluntad política para actuar en sinergia con toda la sociedad es el elemento central para la lucha climática, porque todos tenemos el deber y es tiempo de actuar. Unidos lo hacemos. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Paul Herbert Oquist, Minister, Private Secretary for National Policies of Nicaragua. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Sus Excelencias, ministros y ministros, invitados especiales. El presidente de la República de Nicaragua, comandante Daniel Ortega Saavedra, y la vicepresidenta, compañera Rosario Murillo Zambrana, envían sus saludos y mejores deseos para el éxito de esta COP, tan importante y quizás determinante para finalmente lograr un mayor nivel de compromiso y acción climática. Las responsabilidades comunes pero diferenciadas y las capacidades respectivas no son posiciones políticas, sino realidades objetivas, históricas y contemporáneas. Mantener que todos somos responsables históricamente por el cambio climático equivaldría a decir que todos participábamos por igual en la revolución industrial, así como en la masiva acumulación de capital resultado de la misma. Esto cuando la mayoría de nuestros países en aquel tiempo sufrieron el yugo del colonialismo y el neocolonialismo, así como el comercio de esclavos y la explotación de la mano de obra esclava, que también contribuyeron a la acumulación histórica de los responsables. Mantener que todos somos iguales y universalmente responsables de las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero hoy en día quiere decir que los 100 países de menores emisiones que suman 3% del total tienen la misma responsabilidad de los 10 países de mayores emisiones que tienen 72% del total. A la vez es equivalente de decir que la mayoría de los países con menos de 1 tonelada de CO2e tienen la misma responsabilidad que los países que tienen 18 toneladas y 16 toneladas per cápita. Mi país, Nicaragua, contribuye el 0,03% del total de las emisiones mundiales, con una per cápita de 0,63 toneladas. A pesar de nuestro ínfimo nivel de responsabilidad, trabajamos activamente en la mitigación, adaptación y pérdida de daños, porque queremos a la madre tierra. Nos preocupa el futuro de nuestro país, el del mundo. Nicaragua ha pasado de 25% energía renovable en 2007 a 62% en 2018, a la vez que ha expandido la cobertura de electricidad de 54% de los hogares en 2007 a 95% en 2018. A la vez que se ha expandido también la iniciativa 30 por 30 de restaurar 2.8 millones de hectáreas degradadas de tierras, producto de una histórica frontera agrícola activa. Hemos comprometido en la Sociedad del Carbono del Bosque de capturar 11 millones de toneladas de CO2e en los próximos 5 años. Estamos a la vez adaptando un corredor seco a la realidad de cambio climático. Este esfuerzo ha sido realizado en condiciones de un crecimiento promedio de 4.7 anual entre 2011 y 2017, la tercera más alta entre los países de América Latina y el Caribe. Esto ha venido acompañado de grandes avances sociales, incluyendo la reducción de la tasa de mortalidad materna de 92 a 34 y la reducción de la tasa de mortalidad infantil de 29 a 12. La desnutrición escolar ha reducido en 66%. La pobreza general se redujo del 47 al 24% y la pobreza extrema del 17 a 6. Muy importante en este mundo y no muy común es que se redujo también la desigualdad. La Gini de consumo en Nicaragua pasó de 0,41 a 0,33. Nicaragua en 2007 ocupó el lugar 90 en el índice de brecha de género del Foro Económico Mundial de Davos. Y ahora, en 2018, llegó a 5º lugar, solo debajo de los países nórdicos. En cuanto a la población indígena y afrodescendiente de la costa caribe y el alto río Huanquicoco, ellos recibieron la delimitación y titulación de alrededor de 37.800 kilómetros cuadrados de tierras ancestrales en 23 territorios, cada uno con su propio gobierno territorial y con dominio y control de sus propios recursos naturales. Sin embargo, Nicaragua, como 35 países adicionales del mundo, ha visto mermada su capacidad de respuesta, su capacidad respectiva de respuesta al cambio climático y de logro de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, afectado por medidas coercitivas, unilaterales, extraterritoriales e ilegales, que hasta criminalizan a terceros que no acaten las medidas ilegales. Solo las sanciones aprobadas por el Consejo de Seguridad de Naciones Unidas son legales en el derecho internacional. El sistema internacional de transferencias bancarias es clave para imponer estas medidas. También existen acciones encubiertas de desestabilización de gobiernos y intentos de golpe de Estado, unos exitosos y otros no. En el Medio Oriente, varios países han sido invadidos y bombardeados en guerras de agresión. El juzgado de Nuremberg dictaminó que esa forma de agresión, ese tipo de guerra, es la suprema violación del derecho internacional y de los derechos humanos porque contiene la sumatoria de todos los males propios de la guerra. Incluso países que sufren la consecuencia del cambio climático ven su capacidad de respuesta a futuro destrozada debido a desastres catastróficos y la falta de mecanismos internacionales de compensación. Todos estos fenómenos han afectado a la capacidad respectiva de respuesta, que no es posición política, sino una realidad que vivimos. Nuestra Convención de Cambio Climático y el Acuerdo de París están incompletos al no incluir un mecanismo efectivo de financiar la respuesta y recuperación de pérdidas y daños. Mitigación reduce el riesgo de pérdidas y daños. La adaptación reduce el impacto de amenazas específicas de pérdidas y daños, mientras pérdidas y daños mismos son el resultado del cambio climático que estamos buscando minimizar. Así, proponemos en este COP que pérdidas y daños sea elevado al mismo nivel de mitigación y adaptación en nuestra convención, pero de esta manera puede recibir recursos que requiere hacer frente a los pérdidas y daños. El presidente de Nicaragua, comandante Dan Ortega Saavedra, en su mensaje a la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas en 2015, señaló que la única manera equitativa y efectiva de financiar pérdidas y daños es que los países que han utilizado el presupuesto de carbono del mundo para su acumulación de capitales indemnicen a los países que sufren las consecuencias del cambio climático sin haberlo causado, en la proporción de su responsabilidad. Tenemos los datos desde 1880 hasta la fecha, tanto para países como para empresas. Este concepto algunos consideran muy radical, pero no lo es. El concepto de que el que causa un daño a otro debe indemnizarlo por el daño se llama tort en el derecho común, en common law. También constan los códigos napoleónicos en la ley Sharia. Así también todos los sistemas éticos y todas las regiones del mundo contienen el concepto. Sin embargo, es el término más despreciado y temido en estas negociaciones, la palabra indemnizaciones. Los países actualmente en desarrollo necesitan ingentes recursos financieros a futuro para enfrentar mitigación, adaptación y pérdida de daños. En Copenhague, en 2009, se planteó un financiamiento de 100,000 millones anuales a partir de 2020. No debemos en esto aceptar registros contables de gastos pasados. No podemos financiar nuestros proyectos con registros contables. Tampoco podemos aceptar que los mecanismos de mercado del artículo 6 del Acuerdo de París reemplacen los 100,000 millones anuales. No debemos aceptar una postergación de esa fecha luego de haber esperado 10 largos años. Lo que necesita a partir de 2020 son recursos nuevos, frescos, líquidos y de igual acceso por todos los países en desarrollo. De aparecer, estos fondos deben ser canalizados por el mecanismo financiero de la Convención, a saber, Fondo Verde del Clima, GEF, Fondo de Adaptación y Fondo de Países de Menor Desarrollo para asegurar igualdad de derecho de acceso. Un fenómeno alentador es que 2019 va a ser recordado como 1848, 1871, 1968 y 1989 como años en que la calle volvió significativa en la política mundial. El cambio climático es uno de los impulsores de este fenómeno en muchos países con la juventud en primera línea. Los jóvenes de 16 años marchando en las calles tendrán 18 años en 2 años y ya nadie va a hablar de una juventud pasiva, desinteresada y apolítica. Una juventud votante altamente motivada puede cambiar la correlación de fuerzas políticas en muchos países, siendo decisivo en aquellos países divididos por iguales o algo parecido. Finalmente, quisiera señalar que si el compromiso de estos 100,000 millones anuales en 2020 no se cumple, después de esperar 10 años, podría ser catalogado como el fraude del siglo. En realidad, se necesita más y 100,000 millones al año tiene que ser solo un punto de partida. El mito de los 100,000 millones tiene el agravante de que redujo el gasto climático en la década crítica de 2010 y ahora estamos sufriendo las consecuencias de dicha merma en la actividad climática, en las finanzas y acción. Lo que no podemos hacer en este momento es tener otra década para las finanzas y la acción climática. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Your Excellency. Could I kindly remind speakers to remain at the 3 minutes level, please? It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Ha Hong Tran, Minister of Natural Resources and Environment of Vietnam. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the delegation of Socialist Republic of Vietnam, I wish to congratulate the government of Republic of Chile on assuming of the COP25 presidency. We also would like to express our gratitude to the government of Spain for its hospitality and excellent arrangements in organizing this important conference. 4 years ago, in Paris, together we showed great solidarity and determination of our nation to create one of the most beautiful revolutions in the 21st century, opening new hopes on addressing climate crisis. Since then, we have all been making our efforts to protect our climate for the Earth's sustainability and for generations to come. However, climate change has hardly stopped heating at all. Scientists have shown and facts have proven that dangerous reality. Madam President, Vietnam wishes to take this opportunity to highlight the following points. First, climate change must be considered as an ethics matter. Life on present, future generations can be shaped with concrete commitments and immediately action under the Convention, the Kyoto Protocol, the Paris Agreement. Vietnam therefore calls on countries to continue their unfulfilled pre-2020 commitment and responsibility of GHG reduction and financial instruments. In addition to their post-2020 commitment and responsibility, the greenhouse building trust among all nations for the new period of global efforts to tackle climate change. Second, it is again a high time to show solidarity among the nations here in Madrid to realize the revolution we all created in Paris. Together, we can make it a transformation in development models. especially in the energy sector, toward climate resilient and sustainable economies. The transformation must be based on the application of achievements of the fourth industrial revolution. To that end, Vietnam calls for the increased ambitions in provision of financial support on technology transfer and application capacity building for enabling that